George Russell's remarkable one-stop strategy at the Belgian Grand Prix was insufficient to avoid disqualification, but it did spark a flurry of conspiracy theories that his achievement was solely due to the fact that his car was underweight. And now, a couple of days later, as new evidence keeps emerging, it's clear to see why Russell and Mercedes were so furious about the disqualification. The incident received major attention as it happened right after Mercedes' first 1-2 in a long time. This resulted in a major breakdown from many analysts and experts, but also Mercedes and Pirelli themselves. Ask Karun Chandhok, a former driver turned Sky Sports F1 analyst, and you'll get an interesting answer. He claims Russell's underweight car would have provided no performance benefit. Karun Chandhok wrote on X, "Such a shame for George Russell. He made that strategy work for him and deserved that win. The last 10 laps were sublime, smooth, fast, error-free." To be fair, the car would never have been below the 798 kilograms weight limit during the race, as they had fuel on board, so no performance advantage for him. However, clear error by the team, as 798 is the minimum dry weight without fuel. So was a slam dunk DQ once the FIA drained the car out. However, one major and much more obvious reason for Russell's exclusion is tyre deterioration. Many drivers reported that the new surface at Spa-Francorchamps caused more tyre wear than intended. As a result, Russell's tyres weighed far less than those of a driver using a two-stop strategy. Furthermore, the lack of a cool-down lap prevented Russell from picking up any marbles that may have helped his car achieve the minimum weight. Chandhok addressed this, saying, "The long stint would have caused more wear on the tread and lighter tyres. However, the FIA are allowed to weigh the car with any other set. If you consider the opposite, drivers can pick up a load of rubber pickup to add weight, so using the other set negates that." However, the strange thing is that even after this emerged and showed us all there must have been something else, Mercedes still held on to their reasoning. It must have been the tyres, according to them. To make it even more strange, Mercedes have revealed that the cars of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell were within 500 grams on weight at the start of the Belgian Grand Prix, as the full investigation into Russell's disqualification goes on. Russell believed he had won his third Formula One race in Sunday's Belgian Grand Prix, just beating Mercedes teammate Lewis Hamilton to the finish line. Russell's euphoria was short-lived, as he was eliminated from the official results at Spa after his car was discovered to be 1.5 kilograms under the minimum weight restriction during post-race scrutineering. Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team boss, released a statement after Russell's penalty was confirmed, apologised to the driver, and admitting the team had clearly made a mistake. During Mercedes' post-race debrief show, trackside engineer director Andrew Chauvelin said that the team is still trying to understand exactly what happened. He also stated that Hamilton and Russell's cars started the race the same weight after being weighed following Saturday afternoon's qualifying session. But in the end, they seemed to shove it off onto the tyres. Could there have been something else going on they're not telling us? Chauvelin said, "Obviously very disappointing and unfortunate, particularly after he had driven such a strong race to win from so far back. Right now we're trying to understand exactly what happened. A lot of that involves us getting the weights of all the different components. The car can lose quite a lot of weight during the race. You get tyre wear, plank wear, brake wear, oil consumption. The driver themselves can lose a lot, and in this particular race George lost quite a bit of weight. The cars started the race the same weight. Lewis and George were both weighed after qualifying. The cars were within 500 grams. George's was the only one that had the problem, and it's because things like the tyre wear was much higher. It looks like we lost more material on the plank. We'll collect all that data though, and look at how we can refine our processes, because clearly we don't want that to happen in the future." Asked about the impact of Russell's car being underweight, he added, "In terms of pace at the start of the race, it's nil because George's car and Lewis's car start the race at the same weight. Obviously, as George's car was losing weight faster than Lewis's throughout the race, there is an associated gain with that, but you're into the hundredths of a second per lap. It will be very small, because when you're talking about amounts like 1 or 2 kilos, they don't amount to a lot of lap time. But at the start of the race, the cars were the same weight. Russell's one-stop strategy, as well as the lack of the typical cool-down lap at Spa, which allows drivers to increase weight by racing over chunks of discarded tyre rubber, have both been mentioned as major reasons for his withdrawal. Chauvelin noted that Russell did not have as much to lose as teammate Hamilton, who was on track to finish 4th at best, until he decided to pursue an alternative approach. He said, "It was a decision that was taken by the strategy team. In Lewis's case, it was a fairly simple decision to make his pit stop because he was leading the race and he had Charles Leclerc behind. Leclerc was not within undercut range, but when he stopped on fresh rubber, he would have undercut us if we had not brought Lewis in. When you are leading a race and the car in P2 stops, it is completely normal that you make sure you cover that, because that is how you hold track position, and he was one of the significant threats." George did not have as much to lose. Had we stopped George at about that same point as we did Lewis, he was forecast to finish somewhere around 5th or 6th place. Maybe he would have got 4th. But we were expecting him to be able to get Sergio Perez, but he was still in that same battle that he was in before with Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. If we stayed out longer, that was what would then put George in contention for a podium position. He was very helpfully telling us that the tyres had stabilised. They did not feel like they were dropping, and he asked if we felt a one stop would be on the cards. Based on the wear we had seen in the earlier stops and in Lewis's middle stint, we could see that it was viable that you would be able to get to the end of the race with rubber. He obviously did a great job hanging on to them. It was not our plan on Sunday morning to do that strategy, but it was a good reaction by the strategy team and by George himself during the race to adapt to what we were seeing, the lower degradation, and capitalise on that. Pirelli has also offered a preliminary explanation for the lower than expected tyre wear. Pirelli, F1's tyre supplier, believes track temperatures, as well as significant tyre management for drivers on the medium surface, contributed to Russell's lack of tyre wear and his potentially costly approach. Car setups for the front axle were also emphasised. Going into the race, we stated that a one-stop was not fast enough compared to a two-stop, but leaving aside Russell's disqualification, his performance would disprove that theory, Mario Isola, Pirelli's F1 boss, said. For a preliminary explanation, at least in terms of tyre behaviour, there are some factors that stand out. First of all, today's track temperature was around 10 degrees higher than during FP2, and that probably contributed to very limited graining on the hard, which on the other hand was very significant on the mediums on a long stint. Furthermore, we can assume that the teams worked hard on defining car setup to find the best compromise between a wet qualifying and a dry race, and to try and protect the front axle, which was most prone to graining. A third element to consider is that many drivers made a point of looking after their mediums very carefully, especially in the quickest corners. While Russell's disqualification was a massive blow, Wolff was quick to point out that Mercedes were the benchmark on Grand Prix Sunday at Spa, with Hamilton's triumph making it 3 victories in the previous 4 races. "Look, you know, we have to take it on the chin if the stewards decide against us," he stated just before Russell's disqualification was announced. "It is what it is, a mistake has happened, or could have happened, and a 1-2 would have been a great result going into the summer break. It couldn't go any better." The positives, the very positive that we can take from this race is that we had 2 cars that were the benchmark in this race with 2 different strategies. Who would have said that a few months ago? And that is really good to see. I think it's the one stop that you expect lots of rubber, maybe more, but there's no excuse. If the stewards team deems it to be a breach of regulations, then it is what it is. We have to learn from that, and, as a team, you know there are more positives to take. Obviously, for George, that's a massive blow. A driver and all his childhood dreams to win these races, and then it's being probably taken away. But he's gonna win many more. What are your thoughts on what happened? Could Mercedes have prevented it with a simple tyre change? Or did they do something different to George's car, making him drive an illegal spec? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.